People think Thailand is all beaches, cocktails and cheap living with smiling photos on Facebook. And for some people, it is. But there's another side to Thailand that tourists never really see. A quieter side and a much sadder side. A side hidden behind the bars, the condo balconies, shopping malls and social media posts, pretending everything is still great. Because scattered across Thailand, especially places like Pattaya, Phuket, Chiang Mai and parts of Bangkok, there are foreigners quietly falling apart. Not all of them, but enough of them. And the strange thing is, most people walk past them every day without even noticing. You'll see them sitting alone outside 7-Eleven at 10 AM with a beer already open. You'll see them wandering malls with nowhere to go. You'll see them in bars every single night speaking to the same staff because those are the only people who talk to them anymore. You'll see old foreign men sitting silently in food courts, staring into space while the world moves around them. And behind a lot of these faces, there is loneliness, regret, embarrassment, depression, and sometimes fear. Fear of going home, fear of running out of money, fear of getting old alone, and fear of admitting the dream didn't quite work out the way that they imagined. And today, I want to talk about the foreigners nobody really talks about in Thailand, not the YouTube fantasy, not the living my best life version, the actual, real Thailand. Because after years around Thailand, you start noticing patterns, you start seeing things tourists never see. And once you notice them, you can't really unsee them. Now, before people get offended in the comments, as there's always at least one, this video is not attacking Thailand. Thailand did not create these problems. A lot of these men arrived carrying problems with them already. Thailand just simply exposed them and sometimes amplified them and sometimes delayed reality long enough that by the time it finally catches up, it hits hard, really hard. Now, one thing I've noticed is that many foreigners arrive in Thailand believing they are escaping something, a divorce, depression, loneliness, some failure, a burnout, financial pressures, social isolation, and aging. Thailand can genuinely feel like medicine at first. The weather is better, people smile more, life feels lighter, and suddenly you feel visible again, especially older men. In the West, many older men slowly become invisible, and people don't really talk about this enough. Once some men retire, they lose their identity almost overnight. No more workplace, no structure, no purpose, sometimes no partner, kids are all grown up, friends have drifted away, and society tends to value men based on productivity. Once that disappears, some men feel like ghosts. Then they get on a plane and they arrive in Thailand, and suddenly someone smiles at them again. Someone asks them how they are. Someone laughs at their jokes, acts happy to see them. Even simple things feel powerful. A waitress remembering your name, a woman holding your arm, people greeting you warmly every day. That emotional impact is stronger than many people realize, especially if someone has felt emotionally ignored for years back home. And honestly, I think that's why some foreigners become emotionally attached to Thailand very quickly. Not because Thailand is fake, but because they were emotionally starving before they arrived. But that's the part many people miss. But here are where things become dangerous, because some men mistake temporary comfort for permanent healing, and they stop building a real life. Instead of creating structure, they drift. They wake up late, hit the bars at night, drinking becomes routine, no long-term planning, no community, and no purpose, and no real support network. And slowly, paradise becomes isolation. There are foreigners in Thailand who haven't had a genuine friend in years. Think about that for a second. They speak to bar staff, shop workers, maybe a girlfriend, maybe YouTube commenters online, but real friendship, real emotional connection, it's very little. Research on expats and retirees abroad has repeatedly shown higher risks of depression, loneliness, and substance abuse when people lose familiar support systems and routines. And honestly, you can see it. You can physically see it in certain places. There are men in Thailand who drink every single day because without alcohol, they'd have to sit alone with their thoughts. Alcohol becomes the structure. Morning beers become routine. Bars become their social life. Nightlife becomes companionship. But eventually, alcohol stops enhancing life and starts replacing it. And Thailand can hide alcoholism very easily because drinking there feels normalised. Nobody really questions it, especially in nightlife areas. If someone drinks heavily every day in England, Canada or Australia, people will notice. But in Thailand, a foreign guy drinking at noon barely even registers, and over time some men slide deeper into it without realising. And the scary thing is how gradual it can happen. A few beers becomes daily beers becomes dependency becomes health problems. Then one day you see the same guy years later and he looks 20 years older than he should. Bloated face, shaking hands, sunburnt skin, completely detached, and people just walk past him. Now, another thing nobody talks about enough also is fake wealth. Thailand has a strange social illusion around foreigners, especially in tourist areas. Some men arrive and suddenly feel rich for the first time in their lives. Even average pensions or savings can stretch much further than back home. And at first it feels incredible. Nice condo, eating out daily, nightlife, attention and comfort. But some foreigners quietly burn through money trying to maintain an image. I've met men pretending to be wealthy who are actually surviving month to month. And some are one medical emergency away from disaster. Some are borrowing money quietly. Some are living off shrinking pensions. And some are trapped financially but too embarrassed to admit it. And then pride becomes dangerous because once someone builds an image, it becomes hard to walk backwards. Especially in Thailand, where many foreigners desperately want to appear successful. You'll hear people bragging constantly how much money they have, how many condos they own, how much their girlfriend loves them, how cheap their lifestyle is, how they escaped the matrix. But behind closed doors, some are panicking. I think social media has made this even worse. And YouTube especially, everything becomes performance now. And everyone wants to look like they cracked the code to life. But reality is usually messier. There are foreigners in Thailand quietly sitting in condos with anxiety, depression and financial stress while posting sunset photos online, pretending life is perfect. And honestly, I think some people watching these videos back home end up chasing a fantasy version of Thailand that doesn't really exist. Thailand can absolutely improve someone's quality of life, no question about it, but it doesn't magically remove emotional baggage. You still wake up as yourself every morning, and that part follows you onto the plane. And one of the saddest things that I see sometimes are foreigners who are trapped in Thailand financially. People assume every foreigner in Thailand is wealthy, and that's not true at all. Some can't even afford to return home properly, especially older men. Maybe they sold everything years ago. Maybe relationships failed. Maybe savings disappeared slowly. maybe healthcare costs hit, maybe exchange rates destroyed their budget, and maybe pride stopped them asking for help. And now they're stuck, too broke to comfortably live in Thailand and too ashamed to return home. And that's more common than people think, because going home can feel like admitting failure, especially after years of telling everyone how amazing your new life was. So imagine spending 10 years online telling friends you escaped the miserable West, then returning broke, older, and alone. And that psychological barrier is huge. So some men stay, even when they're unhappy, even when they're struggling, even when they clearly need help. And there is also another thing that people don't discuss enough: aging in Thailand as a foreigner. When you're younger, Thailand can feel exciting endlessly, but aging changes everything. Health becomes important, mobility matters, insurance matters, and community matters. And some foreigners suddenly realise they built a lifestyle but not a support system. That's terrifying, especially if relationships break down or they become ill. Loneliness hits differently when you're older. I recently read research discussing loneliness among retirees in Thailand and how isolation can seriously affect both physical and mental health, especially among older single men living far from family support. And honestly, once you spend enough time around expat areas, you can feel that loneliness in the air sometimes. Not everywhere, not everyone, but it definitely exists. Now, there are also invisible foreigners nobody films on YouTube. Men sitting in tiny rooms, surviving on basic meals. Men with untreated depression. Men drinking themselves into illness. And men with nobody to call. Men who disappear quietly and nobody notices for days. That's real. And before someone comments saying, well, this happens everywhere. Yes, of course it does. But Thailand attracts reinvention. It attracts escape. It attracts fantasy. Which means it also attracts people trying to outrun themselves. And eventually, reality catches up to some people. I also think many foreigners underestimate how emotionally difficult cultural displacement can become long term. At first, everything feels exciting. Then eventually, the novelty fades. And if someone never properly integrated, never learned Thai, never built meaningful local friendships, never developed purpose, life can become strangely empty. Researchers and expat mental health articles regularly point to the loss of familiar routines, identity, and social networks as major causes of emotional decline among expats abroad. And that is why I always say Thailand works best for people who build a life there, not just consume a lifestyle. There's a massive difference. The happiest long-term foreigners I've met usually have a routine, purpose, balance, realistic expectations, stable finances, community, healthy relationships, hobbies, and ultimately, discipline. They did not come to Thailand to disappear from life. They came to live differently, and that's a big difference. But the ones who struggle most often build their entire existence around escape, and escape is temporary. Eventually your mind catches up. And there is also one thing I genuinely wish more foreigners understood before moving to Thailand, is that loneliness doesn't automatically disappear just because the weather improves. Some people move across the world thinking geography alone will heal them. But as human beings, we all need meaning, a routine, a connection, a purpose. Without those things, paradise can become emotionally hollow surprisingly fast. And the sad thing is, Many struggling foreigners hide it extremely well, especially men. Men are experts at masking depression, humour, alcohol, ego, boasting, women, social media. Some men would rather quietly self-destruct than admit they're unhappy. And honestly, I think this is becoming a wider issue globally with older men in general, and not just in Thailand. A lot of men are lonely, a lot of men do feel disconnected, and a lot of men feel discarded after a certain age. Thailand simply becomes the backdrop where those feelings either improve or completely unravel. Now, I want to make something very clear. There are many foreigners in Thailand living genuinely happy lives, healthy lives, balanced lives, good marriages, good friendships, good routines, good communities. I know plenty. This video is not claiming Thailand destroys people, not at all. For many people, it's the best decision they ever made. But I think it's important to talk honestly about the side that nobody glamorizes, because social media only shows highlights to everyone. Nobody uploads the silent condo at midnight. Nobody uploads the panic about money. Nobody uploads the loneliness. And nobody uploads the drinking problem and the fear of aging alone overseas. But those stories exist every single day. And I think one reason my audience connects with these conversations is because people are tired of fake perfection online. People want honesty again. They want reality. And the reality is, Thailand is not heaven. The West is not hell. Human beings carry their emotional world wherever they go. Some people find peace in Thailand. Some people find freedom. Some people find purpose. And some people quietly fall apart. Usually very slowly. Usually very privately. And often surrounded by people who never notice. And that's the Thailand nobody really talks about. And honestly, maybe we should talk about it more. Thanks for listening. Take care and ciao for now. Bye bye.